إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه وبعد. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the most damaging aspects of living in the materialistic world that we live in is that we have been conditioned into interpreting success and failure, sickness and health, strength and weakness only in material terms. And the fact that there is another aspect to this life, the fact that success and failure, strength and weakness, sickness and health has a non-material aspect to it, this fact I can't say it escapes us because I don't think it even reaches us. It doesn't even occur to us. And that is the source of a great amount of trouble in this life, and we ask Allah's protection. It can be the source of eternal damnation on the Day of Judgment. So it is very necessary to realize and understand that we don't just have this body, physical, but that we also have a ruh. We also have the soul which is inside this body, which has its own needs, which must be fulfilled just like we fulfill the needs of the body. And that's the reason why we thought, since we are in I'tikaf, and especially as these lectures after Dhuhr are primarily meant for the mu'takifin as a matter of tarbiyah, I thought it would be a good idea to start that series by looking at the diseases of the heart, ailments and sicknesses of the heart and their cures. So what are the sicknesses of the heart and what are their cures? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Shu'ara, He said, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the day of judgment is a day where neither wealth nor children nor sons will benefit the individual. No matter how wealthy you were, no matter how powerful you were, no matter how many children, how big your tribe was, how big your qabila was, how big your aila or family was, all of this will have absolutely no value and no benefit, except the benefit is only for the one who brings to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala qalbin salim, which is a heart which is pure and which is a heart which is clean. Clean from shirk, clean from nifaq, and clean from all the diseases of the heart. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically mentioned the term qalbun salim. Now, in Islam, when we say qalb, we understand the reality of the qalb. In Islam, we do not have this division that we have in Western thinking of a separation between what they call the head and the heart, a difference between the brain and the heart, difference between the intellect and the feelings. In Islamically, we realize that the qalb is the seat of the intellect and the feeling, because this division of head and heart is a artificial division. Actually, thinking and feeling are inextricably linked, and they cannot be separated from one another. Thinking and feeling are totally linked. Feelings are the foundation from which actually thoughts arise. And that's the reason why many of the Sahaba, for example, Islamically speaking, many of the Sahaba, if you read how they came to Islam, they said, Islam entered my heart. Now what is meaning entered my heart? People did not accept Islam, they did not come into Islam because they were convinced by a theological argument. They didn't come into Islam because logically somebody proved something to them. Even though that may be a route to get to wherever you are getting to, but in the end, it is not logical argument, it is not debate, it is not theological lectures, but it is something which happens in the heart, where a person knows. that he or she has seen the truth. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open our hearts to hidayah from Him, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with us. And that was the power of the Quran, and that was the power of the da'wah of Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where because of the recitation of the Quran has this power of the sound of it itself, the meaning of it, it has this power of entering the heart. And that is what was reported by many of the Sahaba, that this is how Islam entered our hearts. Now, the fact that the heart is the seat of intellect and emotion, and that it's a combination of these two, another dalil from the Quran is the ayah from Surah Al-Hajj, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the people who refuse guidance, the people who are on kufr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "La ta'mal absar, walakin ta'mal qulubul lati fi sudur." Allah said it's not that they are blind with their eyes. They are blind because the hearts which are in their chests, they cannot see. They are blind in the heart. Now, therefore, the nature of what is meant by see is different. Obviously, the heart cannot see as in the same way that the eye can see. But even linguistically, when we speak, when you talk about something and you say, "Do you see what I'm saying?" And how can I see what you are saying? I can listen to what you are saying. I can hear what you are saying. But when we say, do you see what I'm saying? What is the meaning of see? Understand. Do you understand? That see means understand. And therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says, "La ta'amal absar, walakin ta'amal qulubul lati fi sudur," that seeing of the sadr, seeing of the qalb, fi sudur, qulub min fi sudur, that seeing is the understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His qudrat. And that is the reason why we say we see and recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His signs. We cannot see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us that one day and to create the shauq of this, of the shauq of seeing the wajhikal kareem on the day of judgment. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah bless our Shaykh. He always makes this dua in qunut, mashallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the sight of His wajhikal kareem, and may Allah give us the shauq. So we ask Allah for this. But in this life we cannot see, nobody can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what we can do is recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the sight of the heart. And that is why we say that the sight of ibrat, the ability to see the lessons behind something, that is the greatest gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many people, everyone looks at the same thing. I mean, if there are 2 people, 10 people, 50 people, 100 people looking at something, they are all seeing the same thing in terms of physically what they are looking at. But out of those 100 people, there will be one person who will see the reality of that thing which he is seeing. He will say, "What does this tell me?" If you go to Egypt and you go to see the pyramids, 1 million people go there, 1 million people are seeing the pyramids. But in those 1 million people, there will be 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, who will actually see the reality behind the pyramids. And what is that reality? That reality is that somebody who had the wealth to be able to build a mausoleum, to be able to build a tomb of this nature, there is no sign of that person anymore. And therefore, what is the lesson I learn from looking at the pyramids? What is the lesson I learn from looking at the Taj Mahal in Agra? And that is they're seeing all the same thing, but some people are seeing and they are understanding something else. And that's why I always say, we don't see with our eyes, we see with our knowledge. We see with our knowledge, because the picture we see with the eyes is the same, but the understanding comes from the knowledge. And therefore we see with our knowledge. Just to give you a very simple example, if different people go to the haram for umrah, you have an ordinary person like me, I go to the haram. At the most, I will look at the building of the haram and I say, mashallah, what a lovely building and how impressive and beautiful and so on. Right? Khalas, that's it. I go make my tawaf. And an architect will go, he will look at the same building and he has a very different view of what he sees. He will look at how the minar is balanced, how the 2 minars in the front, how they are balanced. He will see how the structure has been created. He will see how the cornerstones of the structure give strength to the whole structure. Now the architect and I are seeing the same thing. But he is seeing much more than what I am seeing, and that is because of his knowledge of architecture. It's nothing, the eyesight is the same. Eyesight is the same, but with his knowledge of architecture, he is seeing something else. And that's why we see with our knowledge, and that's the reason why knowledge is important. And that's what will give us ibrat to look at the dunya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talking again about the heart and the blindness and the ability to see with the heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the quality of the people of Jahannam in Surah Al-A'raf. And Allah said, وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأَنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that there are these people, they have, many of them among the jinn and the human being, they have hearts, لا يفقهون بها. They do not understand. They have hearts, but they do not understand. They have ayun, they have eyes, لا يبصرون بها. But they don't see. Now what is the meaning of don't see? Are all the people who are non-Muslim, are they all blind? They are not blind. They don't see, meaning they don't see the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't see the jalwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't see the glory and magnificence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That itself, in my mind, that itself is the biggest adab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The biggest mahrumiyat, the biggest deprivation is the inability to see the glory and magnificence of Allah Jalla wa Ala behind the creation. You're stuck in the creation. You're stuck in the creation. Even though you know a lot about the creation. May Allah forgive us. We are among the, seriously, we should make sujood and make tawbah. We are the people who received the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are the people who were given the signs about the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the people who actually discovered those signs, who researched those signs and so on, are somebody else. We did not do any of that. We just read the kalam of Allah. Wal jibala awtada, and we were satisfied with that. What pegs? Why pegs? Allah made the jibal as awtad, as pegs. Why? What is a peg? Why is Allah saying peg? Did we think of that? Did anybody ever research on that? Did anyone ever talk about that? No. You only say, wal jibal awtada khalas. At the most, how is it to be recited? What is the tajweed of that particular ayah? If I want to recite it with lahan, then how should I say? We never went beyond that. And the others who do not recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they researched. And they came to the whole theory of tectonic plates, and they came to the whole theory of isostacy of mountains, and they came to the whole theory of how the tectonic plates are pegged by the mountains so that earthquakes do not happen, and so on and so on and so on. Just think, what if we had been the people to tell the world the story behind the Jibal al-Awtada? But just to give you some statistics, in America, in the United States of America, on an average, per year, people read 11 books, average across demographics. In the US, every individual, meaning not every single individual, but meaning demographically, statistically, a person reads 11 books per year. In all of the Middle East, a person reads half a page per year. Half a page. Now, given an average size of a book, which is about 250 pages or 300 pages, because that's roughly the size of books that most people, most publishers publish. So, 11 books is how many pages? Take 300 pages just to make it easy for you to do the numbers. 3,300 pages. And all of the Middle East together, half a page. And we are the people whose religion is based on a book. Ajib, huh? We are the Ahlul Kitab. We should be called Ahlul Safa. not kitab. Or ahlul nisf safa, not even full safa. How can you say kitab? A kitab is not half a page. So we are the people of half a page, not kitab. Seriously, please think. Please think. We don't read. We do not read, and let me tell you, if you don't read, you will remain ignorant all your life. Nothing else. These lectures are a waste of time. Get up and leave. Go away. Read. That will help you 1,000,000 times more than listening to lectures. Take Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah's book. Take Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah's book with regard to Tazkiyatun Nafs. And read that book. Madarijus Salikin. The Madarij of the people of the path. That will do you 10,000 times more good than listening to my lecture or listening to anybody's lecture. But we don't do that. We don't do that. You want someone to sit there and act. And you will look at, somebody sent Azhar a message on our admin group. And what was the message? This person said, I have watched all or many of Sheikh Yawar Baig's lectures. So he's thinking, mashallah, very good, so much of, fikr of deen, and they're watching all these lectures, and Sheikh Yawar is talking about Jannah and Jahannam and Allah and Rasul and so on and so on. And the bottom of the question is, where does he get his wardrobe from? Where does he get his clothes from? So, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Wasn't even a girl, at least. La hawla wa la quwwata. La hawla wa la quwwata. This is our... See, the problem is that even if you are looking at lecture, you are looking at all the song and dance behind it. I mean, all the bells and whistles behind it. Even there is no real fikr to learn something and to apply it in our lives. How are we going to change? What is going to happen? Tell me. So please, the idea of saying this is let us wake up. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in this ayah of Surah Al-Shura, He's saying that there are among the jinn and the human beings people who have hearts but they have no understanding. People who have eyes but they do not see. People who have ears but they do not hear. And as I said, it doesn't refer to the actual seeing. All the non-Muslims are not blind, all the non-Muslims are not deaf. By hearing it means what? Understanding. By seeing means what? Understanding. End of the day, seeing and hearing is good only if you understand what you are seeing and what you are hearing. You're walking in the jungle, right? And you hear a hiss and you think somebody's cycle tire is getting punctured. And 30 seconds later, you are getting punctured. Because that hiss was that of a hamadryad whose territory you entered, and he is coming for you. And a hamadryad is a king cobra which is 16 feet long, and when he rises up and he charges, he is 4 feet in the air, and he has a poison which is both neurotoxic and hemotoxic, and you are dead like nobody's business in 10 seconds. And why? Because you did not understand the meaning of that hiss. You heard, but you had no idea what you were listening to. You had no clue what you were hearing. And similarly, you come for itikaf in the masjid, and the muezzin in salatu, and adhan for dhuhr, the muezzin is saying, as-salatu khairum minan naum. I said, mashallah, very good. Maybe he forgot. What's wrong? The muezzin is crazy. He's saying in dhuhr, he's saying, as-salatu khairum minan naum. You ask the muezzin, why did you say as-salatu khairum minan naum? He says, Sheikh, look at these people. They're fast asleep, they're snoring. Time for dhuhr, so I have to say, no, salat. So I thought, let me make one, ijad in the adhan. As-salatu khairum minan naum. How will you learn? When you come for etikaf, you wake up in the morning at 11:30, at 12 o'clock, at 12:30, and that also because somebody woke you up. Otherwise, you would have slept through Dhuhr and Asr. That is the purpose of etikaf. Just because Rasulullah said that even sleep is ibadah, so therefore now I am going to maximize my ibadah. Sleep from Zuhur all the way to iftar, and mashallah, I am in ibadah. You cannot wake me up. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, these people, they are kal anam, they are like cattle. And Allah says they are worse than cattle. And what did He call them? Who are they? Al-Ghafilun. So the number one disease of the heart is ghafla. Is ghafla. Is to be ghafil. Now, so what is it that makes the heart sick? And there are many things, and of course we don't have time to talk about all of them, but so I thought let me pick the two biggest. The first one is ghafla. Is forgetfulness, heedlessness, thoughtlessness, living like a robot, like a wound up toy. You know, you wind it up and it goes round and round, runs out and stops. Mechanical lives, thoughtless lives. You just wake up in the morning, go to sleep in the evening, wake up, go to sleep, in between you eat something, and that's it. This is not life. My brothers and sisters, please understand, this is not life. This is robots. This is what a robot does. This is not what a human being does. Allah did not create us for this. Now in the hadith narrated by Thawban radiallahu anhu, which is in Abi Dawud, Sunan Abi Dawud, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all of us know this hadith, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the people will soon summon one another to attack you as people when eating invite others to share in the food. So someone said, Ya Rasulullah, will that be because our numbers will be very small at the time? And he replied, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, no, you will be numerous at that time, but you will be like scum. You will be like rubbish which is carried on the top of a flood. You will be like scum and foam on a torrent. And Allah will take away the fear of you from the breasts of your enemy. Allah will take away the fear of you from the hearts of your enemy, and He will put wahan into your hearts. And somebody asked, Ya Rasulullah, what is wahan? And what did he say? What is wahan? He said, Hubbud dunya wa karahiyatul maut. He said, love of the dunya and the fear of death. My brothers and sisters, both of these illnesses, both of these symptoms, Hubbud dunya wa karahiyatul maut, are the reason, the result of one other thing which is the cause of this. And that cause is a lack of yaqeen in the akhirah. Someone who has true yaqeen in the meeting with his Rabb cannot love the dunya. And he cannot fear death. These are two mutually exclusive things. Like fire and water cannot exist together. Like darkness and light cannot exist together. That life and death cannot exist together. So also yaqeen in the akhirah and hubbud dunya cannot exist together. Yaqeen in the akhirah and fear of death cannot exist together. A person who has yaqeen in the akhirah is a person who will want to use this dunya to build his akhirah. He does not love the dunya to gather the dunya and to sit on the dunya. No. He takes the dunya, he uses the dunya, he understands what is this dunya. This dunya is for me to earn the akhirah. And the best example of this is somebody who is selling ice. We are living in a world where these signs are disappearing thanks to technology. But in this city, it is still there. And I'll give you the exact address. If you go down this road, road number 1, Banjar Hills, and if you go down that road, you go past the traffic signal of road number 12. So road number 12 is on your right and you're going down the road towards Mehdipatnam. Just after that signal, there is a nala, there is a canal on which there is a bridge. On that bridge, there is an ice cellar. Just before Khaja Mansion, no, the Khaja Mansion's crossing is before that. Before that, on the right side, that guy is there. Now, who is this ice seller? For the benefit of those who haven't seen that, let me describe. These ice sellers are people, in the morning he goes to the ice factory and he buys a big block of ice. It's a big block of ice, usually it's about 4 feet long and it's about maybe 2 or 3 feet high. Big block of ice. He brings this block of ice, he puts it on the pavement, he covers it up with, usually with husk, right, or sawdust, and he's calling the people, come buy ice, come buy ice. And somebody comes to buy the ice, he takes a pick and he knocks off a piece of that and he gives it to the person. Now while this ice is there, it is ice. And this is India. And people don't buy ice in India in the winter. They buy ice in India when? In the summer. And in Hyderabad, the temperatures go up into the 40s. So that ice, while he is calling the people, the ice is melting. The ice is melting. Now, who is the best ice seller? The one who can sell the maximum amount of ice before it melts. He has to convert this ice. I'm giving the example of dunya al-akhirah. He has been given this dunya. But what will he take home in the evening? Will he take home the ice? No. By the evening, the ice is gone, it's melted, gone down the drain. No matter how big that block of ice was, maybe he bought the whole factory, maybe he bought a mountain of ice. So in the morning when you look at him, you are seeing this man standing there with a mountain of ice and you say, wow, this is the ice king of the world. But what will count? In the evening, what will count? Money. The amount of money that he could earn from that ice. That's the only thing which counts. So there was another guy who was sitting next to him, and we don't know what he did. Maybe he had some, jadoo or some wazifa he was reciting. But he started with a small block of ice, but he sold the whole ice. Whereas this ice king started with a mountain of ice, until by the end of the evening he could not sell the ice. Now in the evening when you take a photograph if you take a photograph of these two people in the morning, what are you seeing? You're seeing one guy standing with a mountain of ice. You're seeing another guy with a small block of ice. So you say, man, he's a rich man, fantastic, look at him, how wealthy, how powerful. He's a king of ice. And you see the other guy, he's a poor guy, he's just got a piece of ice. But when does the race end? When is the winner determined? In the middle of the race, in the beginning of the race, or at the end of the race? End of the race. And at the end of the race, you look into the pocket of the ice king and the pocket is empty. He has nothing. His ice melted and went down the drain. And you look at the other guy who had a small block of ice, but you see he's got money in his pocket. So who is the winner? Who is the winner? Who is the real king at the end of the day? That is our life. That is our dunya. With one difference. And the difference is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala huwa al-adil. Allah is adil. So what is the meaning of that? It means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives everybody the same block of ice. Equal. Opportunity is equal. Everybody has 24 hours. Not more, not less. Everybody's got 24 hours. Opportunity is the same. What you do with the opportunity. I'll tell you two cases of people I know personally. One is a guy who, around the age, he started with bad eyesight to begin with, and then he was studying and so on, lived in Bihar. And then by the time he was around 17 or 18, he completely lost his eyesight. Totally. Went blind. Today, he is a senior manager in PricewaterhouseCoopers in Calcutta. He is running a consulting business. Quite apart from the technology part of it, because he is using some of Microsoft tools for voice recognition and for character recognition. He actually sends out emails without spelling mistakes, which is more than I can say for a lot of you here. He actually sends out emails, he responds to emails much faster than most of you. All of you have eyes which work. And he sends out, his language is far superior to any of yours. And he does not make spelling mistakes. And the man is blind. Completely blind. How did he do it? I'll tell you how he did it. Very simple switch in the mind. His uncle and aunt, his chacha, took him away from Bihar. They used to live in America. They took him away to America to study when he was a kid, when he was losing his sight. So when he finally became totally blind, he was in America. And he said that there was a person, a friend of his, who was a kind of a mentor. So the mentor one day sat him down and he said, look, you've got two choices. One choice is that you can spend the rest of your life moaning and groaning about the fact that you're going blind. You can complain, you can moan, groan, whatnot, about the fact that you have gone blind or going blind. So your other choice is, you can accept that you are going to go blind and you can prepare for a life after that. Decide what to do. And the man said, I decided that I am going to live a normal life and I am going to succeed, and I'm going blind, so I'm going blind. And today, he is a senior consultant and a senior manager in Pricewaterhouse in Calcutta. Why am I saying Calcutta? Because he didn't say this happens only in America. No. It happens even in the boondocks. Second story, once again I'm talking about ice selling. Second story, a guy who had cerebral palsy, and he eventually qualified as a doctor, as a medical doctor. Right? And what do I see you guys, some of you guys doing here? Sleeping till 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And then you complain. What can I do, Sheikh? How can I succeed, Sheikh? You can succeed if you can find a way of making money by somebody who loves to watch you sleeping, maybe. That's a good idea. Set up cameras. Wow, man, this man is sleeping. Ooh, how exciting. I don't know how else you can succeed, because if you want to spend half your life, 3/4 of your life dead, the horizontal position is not a very good position for success in honorable ways. Now, therefore, ghaflat comes from love of dunya, or result of ghaflat is love of dunya and karahiyatul maut. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, what is going to happen if you have that? Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala will make you lose. You will become losers in the world. So as I was saying, this happens, reason for it is lack of yaqeen in the akhirah. I do not really believe that there is an akhirah. I do not really believe that I will go before Allah. If that is your state, then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us and help us. I know that none of us will say that. We should not even say it, but none of us will say that. But remember, it's not what you say. It is the actions that count. What is the bashara for whom? الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ, and then ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. Is it sufficient to simply say قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ? No. Is it sufficient to say Rabbi Allah? No. ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. Istiqamat on that. If I believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu is my Rabb, then my actions must speak about that. Then only we'll get success. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting with the Sahaba once, and he drew a rectangle in the sand, and he drew a line going through the rectangle vertically, and he extended the line outside the rectangle. So he drew the rectangle and he drew a line going straight up outside the rectangle. And within the frame of that rectangle, he drew 2 or 3 lines crossing this vertical line. And this is also the teaching methodology of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he used to teach. First, excite the inquisitiveness and curiosity in the people. Let them ask you a question. And then when you explain, you have their attention. So they asked him, Ya Rasulullah, what is this drawing? What is the meaning of this drawing? And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that this rectangle is the life of the man, the life of the human being. This is your lifespan. And he said this line that is going up straight through the rectangle and extending beyond the rectangle are the desires, the hopes and the aspirations of the person. They extend beyond his lifespan. When you build a house, nobody who is 10 years old builds a house, right? So by the time you're ready to build a house, you are usually in your 40s. And we know, give or take a few years here and there, in terms of lifespans, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how long each one will live, but if you want to just calculate, we say, well, how long are you going to live? Maximum, say 100 years. So if I'm building a house when I'm 40 years old, am I going to say, you know what is the need for an RCC structure? This house has to only stand for 60 years. Because by that time, before that, I will be dead. So why must I build a building which costs more money, RCC structure, this, that, for what? Does anybody think like that? You know you will not live for more than 100 years. But when you build your house, you build a structure which will stand for 1,000 years. Or at least you think it will stand for 1,000 years. Desires. When you start a business, do you have a lifespan on the business? I am starting this business and this business is going to end in 2020. Does anyone do that? You start a business and when you start the business, it is supposed to last for how long? Forever. So somebody says, boss, but you are not going to live forever. Why do you want the business to be there forever? For what? They'll say, you are crazy. This is a nonsensical question. What kind of question is this? But do you think it's a logical question? I mean, should we not ask these questions? I'm not saying start. I'm just saying ask the question. Just ask the question. Now, there is also the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this. This is not to think like this, to have aspirations which go beyond your lifespan is not haram. And this is the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because the world would have ended. If everyone thought that I'm going to live only for 5 years, 10 years, and therefore I will only work to that extent and so on, then there would be no progress in the world, there would be no development in the world because no one is thinking beyond a certain. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put these desires into our hearts, and there is a level of khair also in that, and that's the reason why people do things which outlast them and they are able to, the thing that they start goes on from generation to generation. So there is nothing wrong intrinsically in it. The issue is to get lost in that. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, he drew the rectangle and he said, this is the lifespan of the person. This line going up and through are the desires of people, their hopes and aspirations which go beyond their lifespan. And then the Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, what are these cross lines that you put inside this frame? He said, these are the hawadis. These are the accidents, these are the calamities, these are the things that befall the individual, maybe sickness, maybe an accident and so on. And he said if one misses, the other one will get until he comes to the frame, the boundary of the frame, and that is his death. And that he cannot escape. And this is the reality of our lives. So the first and foremost sickness of the heart is ghafla, is to live in a state of unawareness, a state of forgetfulness about these realities of life. And I explained to you two realities of life. One is ice selling. Remember that. Think of the man with a block of ice. Ice selling. How soon can you convert your ice into money? How soon can you convert your dunya into akhirah? That is the key. Not how much dunya you had. The amount of ice you have in the morning makes no difference. It's what you do with that ice. How can you convert that ice into money? The amount of dunya we are born with, or we inherit, or we earn has no meaning. What can I do to convert this dunya into my akhirah? If I have children or I don't have children, it makes no difference. What kind of children do I have? How much time do I spend on the tarbiyah of those children? That is what will count. Whether those children will become a source of khair or they become a source of shar depends on what you do with those children. You train those children to love Allah. You train those children to love Rasulullah. You train those children to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told them to do. You encourage them to do that. You encourage them to follow the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then inshallah those children will be a source of khair for you in the dunya and akhirah. But you don't do that, you get those children lost in the dunya, and it's so sad to see that. From the youngest age. Only dunya, 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 dunya. Material, 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 material. Toys, to gadgets, to phones, to iPads, to iPods, to this, to that, to that. Continuously, what's in the mind of the child is only material rubbish. Not even reading. Not even books to say, read this book, read that book. Parents never read. Parents are jahilun, or how are they going to teach children? Time to change. Second sickness which I mentioned is the persistence in committing sin. And we have the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam who said that sin covers the heart and eventually seals it completely. We have the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he said that when a person commits a sin, there is a black mark that gets put on his heart. When he makes tawbah, it goes away. If he doesn't make tawbah, it continues. The black mark is put in another one, another one, another one, until the whole heart becomes completely black. In another hadith, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the heart sometimes becomes like a bowl which has been turned upside down. Turned like this completely. Sealed. Nothing can go into it. Nothing can go into it. Please understand one very important thing. I remember mentioning this in another khutbah also. What is the difference between a mistake and a sin? What is the difference between a mistake and a crime? A sin is a crime because a sin is punishable. So to use another word, crime. What's the difference between a mistake and a crime? Is it the nature of the thing or is it the intention behind the thing? Which one? Intention. Let me give you an example. Say you are sitting with your parents, your father is there, your mother is there, and you are sitting close together, and as you get up, your foot touches your father, right? It's possible. You didn't intend to kick your father, but you are human. As you got up, your foot touches your father. If your foot touches your father, what do you do? You apologize, I'm sorry. What will your father say? Yeah, no problem. It's okay. Yes or no? So what is the actual action? The son's foot touched the father. This is the actual action. Now, the same son comes and kicks the father. He comes and kicks the father. Is the action different? Same action. Same action. He touched his father with his foot. But has the nature of the thing changed or not? It's changed. Is it still a mistake? No. Not a mistake anymore. Even though he did the same thing. But now he did it deliberately. He deliberately went and kicked his father. And now when you tell the son, you say, man, what kind of thing is this? You kick your father? He said, see, a foot is a body part. A hand is also a body part. The head is also a body part. If I touch my father, you will not say anything. If I kiss my father, my lips are also a body part. If I kiss my father on the head, you will say, mashallah, so much of adab. He is kissing his father, his sheikh, on his head. This is the proper method. So if I touch my sheikh with my foot on his head, so what? Same body part. Now if you hear this, what will you say if you hear this argument? Is this argument logical? Tell me something. Is it logical or not? Why? It is logical. A foot is a body part. So how is it not logical? It is logical. But do you accept that argument? So now you got this fellow who constantly, every time he goes to his father, he kicks him. Every time he goes to the sheikh, he kicks him. What do you do with this guy? That is, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. This is what we do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jalla jalaluhu. Not in terms of kicking, but in terms of deliberately disobeying. Deliberately disobeying. I was in Masjid al-Nabawi after Hajj, and I met one of the ulama who is associated with the Tabligh movement in India, in Masjid Nabawi, and I made salam and I said, Hazrat, give me some nasiha. Maulana Ahmad Lat Sahab, Damat Barakatuh. So I said, Maulana, give me some nasiha. And he said something to me which is seared into my brain. And I will tell you exactly his words and then I will translate for you in English. तो मैं सलाम करके मैंने कहा, मौलाना आप मुझे नसीहत फरमाए. तो मौलाना ने कहा, तुमको इसका एहसास है कि तुम कहाँ बैठे हो? मैंने कहा जी. कहा कि तुमको इसका एहसास है कि किसकी खबर है? मैंने कहा जी एहसास है. तो कहा कि फिर सुनो. कहा कि जिसने मुस्तहब को हल्का समझ के छोड़ा, जिसने मुस्तहब चीज को हल्का समझ के छोड़ा, अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला उसको सुन्नत की पैरवी से महरूम करेगा. और जिसने सुन्नत को हल्का समझ के छोड़ा, अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला उसको फर्ज की पाबंदी से महरूम करेगा. और कहा कि जिसने फर्ज को हल्का समझ के छोड़ा, अल्लाह तबारक व तआला उसको ईमान से महरूम करेगा और वो कुफ्र पे मरेगा. I said, Maulana, give me some nasiha. He said to me, are you aware of where you are sitting? I said, yes. I am sitting in Masjid Nabawi. He said, do you know whose qabr this is? I said, yes. This is the qabr of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So he said, then listen to me carefully. He said, the one who leaves something which is mustahab, considering it to be unimportant. In Urdu we use the term halka. Halka means light, meaning unimportant. Halki baat, halka admi. It is not referring to his weight. You can be very fat and be very halka at the same time. Right? So he said that if a person who leaves something which is mustahab, considering it to be unimportant, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will prevent him from following the sunnah of the one whose qabr this is. And he says the one who leaves the sunnah, considering it to be unimportant, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will prevent him from completing and fulfilling the faraid of Islam. And he said the one who leaves the fard, considering it to be unimportant, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will deprive him of iman and he will die without iman. He will die as a kafir. Now what is he talking about? What am I talking about? I'm talking about the difference between a mistake and a crime, right? So this thing, this nasiha which Sheikh Ahmad Lat Sahab gave me, this refers to what? It refers to the attitude of a person. Here is something which Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to do. And I choose to consider it to be unimportant. Now there is a difference. There is a sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam which, for example, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam always drank water with the right hand. Right? Now I may be eating with my right hand. And so my hand is now full of, curry and whatnot. And there is a jug on the table which has water. Now I need to get this jug, or maybe the water is in my glass and I need to pick up the glass. There is a nice crystal glass and I don't want the glass to get dirty, so I use my left hand, I pick up the left hand and I touch my right hand to that. Now you might say, well, this is not the sunnah. But I am saying, I'm hesitating to pick up the glass with that right hand because it's full of curry and so on. So even though I am doing something which is not the sunnah, even though I am going against the sunnah, I am doing it very regretfully, I am sorry about that, I wish my iman was stronger. But on the other hand, I deliberately eat with my left hand. I deliberately drink water with my left hand. And somebody tells me, there's nothing wrong with you, your hands are clean, everything. Why are you using your left hand? Why don't you use your right hand? He said, I can't do it. I won't do it. Now, is there a difference between these two? There are people, for example, who Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, your lower garment, your izar should be above your ankle. And a lot of, shidda with regard to the, lot of emphasis with regard to that. Now maybe you are a guy who has this beautiful Armani suit which costs you $5,000 and you don't want to, chop off a piece of it. And you don't really wear that very often, you wear it once in a blue moon, and when you wear it, you're making tawbah all the time, you say astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah while you're wearing it. Maybe Allah alam, right? On the other hand, you insist on wearing trousers which are not only below your ankles, they are also below your heels, and you're walking on that trouser, and you're going into the bathroom also, and you come back into the masjid with the same trouser on which you've been walking. And when somebody tells you, lift up your izar, you don't like that. Now, is there a difference? And let me give you, I gave you these two examples because there are two actual recorded incidents about both. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was sitting and a man came and they were all eating, and this man came and he was eating with his left hand. And Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, eat with your right hand. The man ignored him and he continued to eat with the left hand. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, eat with your right hand. He ignored him, he again ate with his left hand. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to him a third time, he said, eat with your right hand. The man said, my right hand does not lift. And the man's right hand never lifted after that. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam kept quiet, he didn't say anything. He did not even say, let it be so, nothing, he just said nothing. And the man's arm got permanently paralyzed. It did not lift after that. The problem with insisting on breaking a sunnah. So let me ask you, Alhamdulillah, we have, thanks to my broken record talking, I have to now, in a crowd like this, I have to actually look for somebody who does not have a beard, and today I can't even find anyone. Huh? But ask this question, seriously ask this question for those of you who shave every morning. Seriously ask yourself this question. What if a day comes when you lift your right hand to break the sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? You touch the ghira of his Rabb. You touch the ghira of his Rabb. And your hand never lifts again. What if that happens? You think it is a joke? To deliberately break the sunnah of the Nabi every day? Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. People get upset with me. They say you can talk about only two things, the beard and the hijab. Write this down on my grave. I make you witness, and may Allah call you before His throne the day when I am presented before Him, and may Allah make you say that on the day of judgment. Inshallah, it will be the reason for my deliverance on the day of judgment. Go and complain to Allah. Go and complain to Allah about me, and say that, Ya Allah, this idiot used to only talk about the sunnah of your Nabi. This idiot used to only talk about covering the head. Go complain to Allah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. Deliberately breaking the sunnah of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is playing with the fire of Jahannam, let me assure you. You're playing with fire, and you're not playing with the fire of this world, you're playing with the fire of Jahannam. Because you are saying by your action that the sunnah of the Prophet of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is unimportant. You chose to break the sunnah deliberately. And that is dangerous. That is very dangerous. And the second example I told you was what? The izar. And let me tell you, Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu has been stabbed. He was leading Salatul Fajr, and the man came and stabbed him, and he literally ripped open his belly, And he had a poisoned dagger with which he did that. And then he stabbed another 13 people in the congregation. So Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu is dying. Now he is lying there, and one of the young men of the Ansar came to see him. He came to visit the Amirul Mu'mineen who is dying. He came and met Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, and as he was walking away, Sayyidina Umar said, somebody call him. The man came. Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu said to him, lift up your izar. He said, lift up your thob, lift up your izar. He said, that is better for your izar and it is better for your taqwa. Now I want you to reflect on this. When somebody is dying, what do we know about the wasiyat which they give? If somebody is dying and they have to say something, will he say, watch Angry Birds? What will he say? He will say something which he considers to be extremely important. My last few words, may Allah give us all the kalima, but maybe a few words before that, you want to give advice to somebody, your students, your children, your wife, whoever is there, you will say something which is extremely important. Now here is a man who was among the Khulafa al-Rashidin, who Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, follow the Khulafa al-Rashidin. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, a woman came to him and she asked him a question and he said to her, come tomorrow. And she said, if I come tomorrow and I do not find you here, what shall I do? He said, ask Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. She said, if Abu Bakr is not there, what should I do? He said, ask Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. We're not talking about a random person. We're talking about Amirul Mu'mineen. We are talking about the ulama of the Sahaba. We are talking about the shuyukh of the Sahaba. We are talking about a person who Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam pointed out and said, ask this person. We are talking about a person about whom Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had continued nubuwwat after me, Umar would have been the next Nabi. Radiallahu anhu. We are not talking about a random person. We are talking about a student of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam who learned the deen directly from the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that man, what is the wasiyat that he is giving to a young man? Lift up your izar. Now what do you say? What do I say? You say, what kind of people is this? When he is dying, he is talking about somebody's trousers. What's wrong with him? Is something wrong with him or is something wrong with us? They understood the akhirah. They understood converting that ice into money. So persistence in committing sin takes the mistake and makes it into a crime. It takes something which is excusable, something which is natural, something which can happen, even if it happens many times, it is still a mistake. It converts it into a culpable offense which attracts punishment. Why? Because you are doing it deliberately. My brothers and sisters, I remind myself and you, there are only two reasons why we commit sins and why we insist on committing sins, and that is self-indulgence, nafs, and trying to please friends. So as far as self-indulgence is concerned, the cure for both is the same. The cure for both is the same. The cure for self-indulgence and the cure for trying to please your friends, the cure is the same. And you know what that is? Remember your own death. Remember that one day you will die. That will take care of your self-indulgence, and remember one day you will die, and that none of these friends will come with you in the grave. All these cool characters you are trying to please, not a single one of them will be with you in the grave. So remember that. Now, symptoms of the sickness of the heart. I told you about the two sicknesses. Now, what are the symptoms? The symptom of the sickness of the heart is the dryness of the eyes. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, the dryness of the eyes is a symptom of the hardness of the heart. A heart which does not respond to the kalam of Allah. a heart which does not shiver with the glory and magnificence of Allah. Why are we not using the air condition to remind us of the fire of Jahannam, which is hotter than this? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said in the hadith in Tirmidhi, there are 3 types of eyes whom the hellfire will not touch. What are the 3 kinds of eyes? He said, the eye which keeps itself shut from looking at haram. 3 kinds of eyes which the fire of Jahannam will not touch, inshaAllah. The eye which keeps itself shut because of the fear of Allah. The eye keeps itself shut so that it does not watch haram. Second one, the eye which remains open to guard the Muslims, to guard the frontiers of Islam, to guard the Muslims. And the third one is the eye which constantly sheds tears, which weeps with the love of Allah, which weeps with the desire to meet Allah, which weeps with the glory and magnificence of Allah. That weakness is not a sign of, that wetness of the eyes, that crying is not a sign of weakness. Never mistake it for weakness. It was a sign of the strongest of this ummah. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu was once reciting in Salatul Fajr, and they said we could hear him crying till the back of the masjid. He wept so much. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the issue of weeping, specifically the issue of weeping. In Surah Al-Isra, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, خَرُّ سُجَّدًا وَبُكِيًّا. He's mentioned the Salihin, the people who of the righteous people, and he said, what do? He said, they make sujood and they weep. And when Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu came to this ayah, he said, Allah is saying, you make sajda and you weep. He said, we make sujood, but where are the tears? He says, where are the tears? Now who is saying this? The man used to shed so many tears. He used to shed so many tears, but he was still not satisfied with that. He said, I must cry some more with the glory and magnificence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many of us are there who have never cried about the glory and magnificence of Allah? How many of us are who the Quran has never touched? We read the kalam, we listen to the kalam, it's entertainment. We never cry, it leaves us completely untouched, unmoved. This is a sickness of the heart. Very, very lethal and dangerous sickness of the heart. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about this. And He said, ثُمَّ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ فَهِيَ كَالْحِجَارَةٍ أَوْ أَشَدُّ قَسْوَةٍ وَإِنَّا مِنَ الْحِجَارَةِ لَمَا يَتَفَجَّرُ مِنْهُ الْأَنْهَارُ وَإِنَّا مِنْهَا لَمَا يَشَقَّقُ فَيَخْرُجُ مِنْهُ الْمَاءُ وَإِنَّا مِنْهَا لَمَا يَحْبِطُ مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ وَمَا اللَّهُ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the example of rocks. And He said, then after that your hearts were hardened and they became as stones, as rocks, or even worse in hardness. And indeed there are stones out of which rivers gush forth. And indeed there are stones which split asunder, which burst, so that water flows from them. And indeed there are some of them stones which fall down from the fear of Allah. And Allah is not unaware of what you do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about the physical effect of the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَفَمَنْ شَرَحَ اللَّهُ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ فَهُوَ عَلَى نُورٍ مِّن رَبِّهِ فَوَيْلٌ لِلْقَاسِيَةِ قُلُوبُهُم مِّن ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أُولَٰئِكَ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُّبِينٍ اللَّهُ نَزَّلَ أَحْسَنَ الْحَدِيثِ كِتَابًا مُتَشَابِهًا مَثَانِيَ تَقْشَعِرُّ مِنْهُ جُلُودُ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ ثُمَّ تَلِينُ جُلُودُهُمْ وَقُلُوبُهُمْ إِلَىٰ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ ذَلِكَ هُدَى اللَّهِ يَهْدِي بِهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَمَنْ يُضْلِلِ اللَّهُ فَمَا لَهُ مِنْ هَادٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, is he whose breast Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has opened to Islam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open our sudur to Islam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us inshara about Islam. Allah said, is he whose breast that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has opened to Islam so that he is in the nur of his Rabb, he is in the light of guidance from his Rabb? Is he equal to the one who is not a Muslim? Is he equal to the one whose heart is sealed? So woe to those whose hearts are hardened against the remembrance of Allah. They are in plain error. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down the best statement, Ahsanul Hadith, the best statement, which is this Quran, a book, its parts resembling each other in goodness and truth, often repeated, the skins of those, and see Allah is mentioning here specific signs that we can monitor in our own bodies. Specific physiological manifestations of the effect of the Quran and the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on our bodies. And what are the manifestations? What are the signs? Allah says their skins, the skins of those who fear their Rabb, who have khashyatullah, they shiver from it, meaning the skin shivers when it hears the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The skin shivers when you read the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah says, and then their skin and their heart soften to the remembrance of Allah. The softness of the heart is a sign of the life of the heart. The hardness of the heart is a sign of the death of the heart. And Allah says, that is the guidance of Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed us the signs to monitor, and He said, these are the signs of guidance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides therewith whom He pleases, and whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends astray, allows to go astray, for him there is no guide. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Anfal, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَإِذَا تُلِيَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُهُ زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَعَلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the signs. And He said that the mu'mineen are only those people who, when the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes before them, wajilat qulubuhum, something happens to their heart. Their heart moves, their heart shivers, their heart is affected, it softens, it does not remain the same. وَإِذَا تُلِيَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُهُ زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا. And when the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are recited before them, their iman increases. وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ, which is the result of this, and on their Rabb they have faith and they have tawakkul. الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. The outward, physical, action-oriented, the action manifestation of the belief is what? إِقَامَةِ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. To spend in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to spend your money, to spend your time, to spend your resources, to spend your influence, to spend your knowledge in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what did Allah say about them? Allah said, أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ حَقًّا. Truly, these are the people who are on the truth. They are the true believers, the ones who believe this and the one who translate those beliefs into their actions. لَهُمْ دَرَجَاتٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ وَمَغْفِرَةٌ وَرِزْقٌ كَرِيمٌ. For them, there are grades of dignity and levels of dignity with their Rabb, darajat, and for them there is their Rabb's forgiveness, and for them there is generous provision in the dunya and akhirah. We ask Allah to make us among them, inshallah. And finally, to close, great danger to watch out from is the lack of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while committing sin. Ajeeb, this world. How can we commit sin? How can we do something wrong knowing that Allah is seeing? Knowing that Allah is seeing. And that's why I'm saying the only reason you do that is because you don't believe Allah is seeing. You do not believe Allah. It's impossible. How can you knowingly do something? I know Allah is seeing, I know Allah will hold me accountable, but I am lying, but I am cheating, but I am taking a bribe, I am giving a bribe, I am deceiving somebody, I am swallowing somebody's property, I am taking away somebody's haqq, I am slandering somebody, I am doing ghiba. I know Allah is watching, I know Allah is hearing, yet I have no shame, I have no hesitation in doing these things. What does it mean? It means that really you do not believe that Allah is watching. Because the two can't be together. Because if you deliberately are doing, knowing that Allah is watching, then you are committing kufr, because you are saying, I don't care, let him watch. Then it goes somewhere else. It's a different level altogether. Because I don't care. Yeah? So I'm hoping it's not there. But so if you're still doing it, what does it say? Lack of fear while committing sin. My brothers and sisters, now what about those who do that? What about those who know that something is haram but they still do it? What about those who know that gambling is haram but they gamble? What about those who know that alcohol is haram but in their house there is a bar and there is every kind of alcohol which is there? Muslims. What about those who know that ghiba is haram but they have no problem with slandering people, with character assassination, with doing ghiba and so on and so forth? No problem. They know it is haram. Ask them, they will tell you dalail also. What does Allah say about them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-An'am, Allah said, فَلَمَّا نَسُوا مَا ذُكِّرُوا بِهِ فَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ أَبْوَابَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ فَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ أَبْوَابَ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ حَتَّى إِذَا فَرِحُوا بِمَا أُوتُوا أَخَذْنَاهُمْ بَغْتَةً فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْلِسُونَ. Allah said, so when they forgot the warning, when they insisted on committing sin, when they insisted on disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they forgot the warning with which they had been reminded, we fatahna alayhim abwab kulli shayin. We opened on them the doors and the gates to every good thing, every pleasant thing. Sounds like something is wrong with this. If somebody is disobeying Allah, it seems as if he's not getting punished, he's actually getting more. Right? You insist on gambling, so what happens? Now you get invited as to become a member of the box in the race course in Malakpet. Huh? So you spend 5 crores to invite all the other losers for a fantastic dinner. Abwaba kulla shay. Everything is being opened for you. You're invited here, invited there. This derby, that derby, this gold cup, that gold cup, and your picture comes in this page, that page, headlines, and you're holding a horse. And tell the guy to sit on the horse and you know how far he is. Allah says we open. Sounds strange. Somebody came and asked Imam Shafi rahmatullah this question. They actually asked this question. They said, we don't see this truth of this ayat. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, when they forgot the warning, with which they had been reminded, we opened to them the gates of every pleasant thing, until in the midst of their enjoyment, all of a sudden we took them. We took them to punishment. And then they were plunged into destruction with deep regret and sorrows. They were broken in spirit. They came and asked Imam Shafi, they said, we don't see punishment happening because of sin. We see people disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing happens to them. And you are saying that Allah will punish. Imam Shafi rahmatullah recited this ayat of Surah Al-An'am. And he said, don't you see what Allah has said? He said, when you see a person deliberately disobeying Allah, and you find that person is getting more money, more influence, and so on and so forth, know that the azab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already started on that individual. The azab has started on that individual. And it is very likely that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take him in a state where he does not even have the opportunity to make tawbah. My brothers and sisters, let us fear the ghira of Allah. Let us fear the ghira of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let us not play with the ghira of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we deliberately commit sin, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can and will punish. Now, I just want to list many of the sicknesses. Of course, we won't talk about them, but just so that we have some pointers, the purpose of this lecture is so that this evening you go and sit down and reflect and say, how many of these do I have? And maybe you can find new ones, in which case email me. This was not in your list. And among my list is greed. Major, major problem. Greed. Bigger than that, arrogance. And arrogance is the number one thing that trips and traps those who come into Islam. They come into Islam, they will be living a life of sin like anybody else, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the good doors of guidance, they become practicing Muslims. The first thing they start doing now is to look down upon everybody else. They start looking down upon everybody else. And they point fingers at everybody else. Arrogance. Lust. Chasing desires. Seeking name and fame. One of the biggest problems of this ummah, may Allah forgive us. Again, something which the so-called ulama are trapped into. The so-called shuyukh, and I'm saying deliberately so-called because the actual alim runs away from name and fame. The actual shaykh runs away from name and fame. What comes to them comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, despite them not wanting it. The ones who are chasing them, the ones who are chasing that are the so-called ulama and the so-called shuyukh, who use this deen to build businesses, who use this deen to make money, who use this deen because they have no fear of Allah and they have no fear of the akhirah, fear of being held accountable before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They use this deen as a business, seeking name and fame. If you become famous, the chances, the biggest chance is that your ikhlas has been destroyed. Please understand this. Fame is almost a certain sign of the fact that your ikhlas has been destroyed. And the one who seeks fame, all the three people, among the three people who are in the hellfire, on the day of judgment, who will be put into the hellfire, the first are the three people. And the quality of all those three people is what? Seeking fame. The alim who used to learn, who learned deen and who used to teach it for the sake of the people. What is that? Seeking fame. How many hits on YouTube? What are the TRP ratings for my TV channel? How many international conferences do I get invited to? And no problem if the international conference, all kinds of haram happening there, but I should go because, otherwise I have to be seen. Visibility status, Facebook status, so-and-so man of the year, woman of the year. Nobody asks the question, who decided that? What is the criterion for deciding that? Who are the other candidates in that lineup over whom this person was decided? Nobody bothers to ask all these questions. Brains have all gone for a 6. Seeking name and fame. Then, showing off, riya, which is shirk. Ostentatiousness. Love of luxury. Can't wake up until 12 o'clock. Love of luxury. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam one day, in one of the houses of our mothers, one of the Azwajatul Mutahharat, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came and he lay down and he got up. And his wife said, Ya Rasulullah, what is the problem? He said, this bed is too soft. What have you done? He said, nothing, Ya Rasulullah, I just doubled that, the cover. He said, I just made it twice. I just doubled it, that's all. I thought you would be more comfortable because it's a, little bit. He said, no. Remove this. Remove this. Bed is too soft. That's the complaint of the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He said this prevents you from getting up in the morning. Prevents you from getting up for tahajjud. You sleep too well. Huh? When I tell people, if you are sleeping for more than 4 hours a day, you are wasting your life. People think I am mad. Until, alhamdulillah, my dear brother Azhar sent me this training video of the Navy SEALs. The crack force of the US Army, the Navy SEALs. He sent me this training video of the Navy SEALs. And guess how long they sleep for? 4 hours. And 20 hours of training. Merciless training. Absolutely merciless training. Why? He said, because if he makes one mistake, he will die and others will die with him. Cannot afford a mistake. What mistake are they talking about? What death are they talking about? Mistake in this dunya? Death in this dunya? You might say, well, he will die anyway. Is a person who enrolls into the Navy SEALs, is he going to get eternal life? No, he will die anyway. So we who like to talk about the Akhirah, who like to talk about the hereafter, how much more conscious should we be about making a mistake? Because the death we are talking about is the death hereafter. It is Jahannam we are talking about. Eh? If you're sleeping for more than 4 hours, believe me, you're wasting your life. If you're sleeping for 8 hours, those people who tell you that you need 8 hours of sleep, they are crazy, they are nuts. 8 hours of sleep is 33% of your life. You want to spend that sleeping? You're crazy. You're crazy. Stop sleeping. Biggest problem with our youth today is sleeping. Force yourself. Everything is a matter of conditioning. You sleep for 4 hours, for a few days you will feel lethargic and so on and so forth. After that you get used to that. Then if you sleep for 5 hours, you get a headache. The body gets used to anything. Believe me, the body gets used to anything. So laziness and love of luxury. Lack of stinginess is another one. Big one. Stinginess. You don't want to spend in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then lack of concern about halal and haram. I won't go into the details here because there's another lecture of mine on that called Taqwa and Fatwa, and we'll talk about haram and halal and eating in detail over there, but keep that pointer in your mind. Lack of concern about halal and haram. Fearlessness with respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Laziness with respect to ibadat. Carelessness with respect to the sunnah and considering the sunnah to be unimportant are all lethal, fatal illnesses of the heart. Finally, diagnostic tool. Number 1, check to see if your heart responds to the kalam of Allah. And check to see if your heart responds to reminders about the akhirah. Do you find irritation in your heart with people who talk about the akhirah? Ask yourself this question. Do you find that irritating? What is this man? He always talks about death. He always talks about akhirah. Morbid fellow. Is that in your heart? Do you have irritation about that? What's your conversation about? Monitor your conversation when you're sitting with your family, your friend and so on. What are you talking about mostly? Dunya or akhirah? What's happening in politics? What's happening here, that, stock market, economy, this. Constantly, is it that? And for some people it is not even that. At least that is beneficial to some extent. You're reading about the economy, so on. Usually we talk about other people, which is the worst of the conversation. Nothing more than that. He did that, she did that, you know what she was wearing, you know which handbag she was carrying. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. They will all have the same kind of kafan, believe me. I don't know of any Tommy Hilfiger kafans or something. Have they invented it? Yeah. He said, no, I have to be buried in a Tommy Hilfiger kafan. And keep the logo on top. You know, let Munkar Nakir come and say, wow, man, he's got a Hilfiger kafan, huh? We better not ask him any questions. We don't know what he's going to say. That's our usual conversation. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So what is the conversation? Is there somewhere in this conversation, is the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned? Somewhere in this conversation do we say, you know, does this please Allah? Is Allah pleased with me? What is my connection with Allah? What was my salah like? What is the khushu? Are these things, Allah, Rasulullah, Akhirah, Day of Judgment, Jannah, Jahannam, do these words feature anywhere in our conversation? I'm talking about normal conversation. I'm not talking about you invited this sheikh to your house and he gave this talk and so. I'm not talking about that. Forget these rituals. Your normal conversation. At your eating table, sitting with your family, driving down the road in the car or whatever. Your conversation. I'm not saying put a tape of Sheikh Yawar Baig's lecture and now you subject everybody to mental torture. They can't even escape. You're driving 70 miles down the road. 70 miles an hour down the road, they can't even escape. They have to listen. इनकी बेटी बोली हमारे सईद भाई छोटी सुन के सिर में दर्द हो गया बोली. May Allah bless her and give her a beautiful life, inshallah. She's a wonderful little person. But this is what we do. We do overdose of this. No. Normal conversation. Make the name of Allah permissible in your house, please. Make the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam permissible in your house. These are the diagnostic tools. Monitor that. If I asked you to write down your 3 top concerns, not after this lecture, because now you are programmed. Normally if I tell you, write down in order of priority 3 top concerns in your life, will the akhirah feature there? Seriously ask yourself, what will happen to me after death? Will that be in that list? If I change that list to say, write 30 top concerns, will akhirah still be there? If I say, write 300 top concerns, 300 top concerns is a stupid statement. I mean, how can you have 300 top concerns? The 3 top concerns, if I say, will life after death, will the qabr, will akhirah be in that list? If I ask you to do a SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities, threat. If I ask you to write a SWOT for yourself, will the word and the name Allah feature in the strengths? As a Muslim, if you do your SWOT analysis, will you write Allah is my strength? I actually do that in the Leadership Excellence course which we teach, LEC. We tell people, make a SWOT. I have yet to see somebody who, they're all Muslims. They're all Muslims. I have yet to see someone writing Allah in the column of strengths. This does not mean that they are all kafir and murtad and they are rebellious. No, nothing. It's just Allah does not feature in my life, period. I'm not a rebel against Allah. They are not, shayateen or something. No. They have factored Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of their lives. And that's why I say, factor Allah into your equation because He is there anyway. Factor Allah into the equation because He is there anyway. Now, brothers and sisters, I want to end with this because we have talked about the sicknesses, we've talked about the diagnostic tools, how to diagnose them, and while I was talking, I also talked about the cures for that. And of course, the cure is tawbah, the cure is remembering your own deaths, the cure is understanding that one day we face Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so I want to end with just a quote which somebody sent me the other day, a beautiful quote. And the person said, the quote goes this way, the quote says, we sin as if He cannot see. He's talking about Allah. He's saying, we sin as if He cannot see. And He forgives as if He did not see. Ajib, eh? He said, we sin as if He sees nothing. And He forgives as if He saw nothing. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to make tawbah and to accept our tawbah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with us and never to be displeased with us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open our hearts to the beauty of this deen, which results in success in dunya wal akhirah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala into our hearts so that we will obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a sense of great joy and a great sense of happiness, not as a burden. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the huluwat and the sweetness of salah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the sweetness of the khushu of salah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to connect us with Himself so that we can feel the sweetness of closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept all your du'as, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with you and never to be displeased. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.